Welcome to the Ask the Herbalist podcast with Lily Cunning. That's me, your host. Ask the Herbalist is brought to you by Haven Herbs, which is available to anyone, anywhere at havenherbs.com. So our next question has been asked of me several times in person, actually. I do Ask the Herbalist as a phone-in and in person. I've done it. And this question is about a product that seems to be everywhere these days, and that is coffee substitutions. Particularly ones that contain mushrooms or other kinds of adaptogens and their efficacy and are they worthwhile, right? So I'm an herbalist. I use plants and fungi to help myself and others heal from all kinds of conditions, or to restore or tonify, which is a word for strengthen, our bodies and our systems. I have tried five different brands of adaptogen or mushroom coffee or coffee substitutes so far, and I plan on trying all of them. I'm going to mention some names. I do not get paid for product placement, nor will I take any money for product placement. I am sharing information based on my personal experience. And here's what I tell people: everybody's biochemistry is a little different. Each product is going to land a little differently for you than it does for me. I will tell you my personal experience with them, and then make some conclusions to help guide you choose a product that might be right for you. So I do not make a coffee substitute or a mushroom coffee at this time. I used to make one called Coffee Schmoffy, and honestly, I didn't feel like mine was better than some of the others on the market, so I just withdrew it because there is a place in the market for these products, and usually the people that make them are only making these, and they research them and they test them, and they've got different machinery to produce them than I do. I'm a artisanal small batch herbal crafter, so I don't have the ability to have freeze-dried things that I don't personally make, and I only want to carry what I personally make under the Haven Herbs label. So, with that said, I got started trying in a brand called Everyday Dose, and I liked it. I was suffering from a lot of stress and anxiety at the time that I started it, and it really helped me cope with that part of my life. Um, and I think it really helped get me through. Now, that brand is a coffee substitute. And it has mushrooms in it, as well as collagen and L-theanine and a bunch of other things to help you with energy. I liked it, like I said, but it got me curious about other brands. So the next thing I tried was Four Sigmatic, and they have a coffee and cacao cocoa substitute that includes mushrooms. And I also liked that one. And because their formulas are a little different, like I responded to each one a little differently. I found that the first brand that I tried really helped me with my mental and emotional state. The second brand that I tried really helped me with that, as well as my physical exhaustion. So I tried that one. The next one I tried was called Joey, Joe apostrophe Y, and it is no coffee at all. It just has cacao as a base, so it still has some caffeine in it, but I really liked it. It tasted better than the previous substitutes. Um, because who doesn't like chocolate? If you don't like chocolate, obviously that's not the brand for you, but I really do. And it was lovely, especially if you put in a little bit of fat, either in the form of dairy fat, like half and half, or coconut cream. Oh my gosh, it was delicious. And I did that for several months as well. Then I went ahead and tried one that seemed to be freaking everywhere, even ads on my phone as I'm playing a game. Mud water. It has no coffee at all, is more of cacao and chai spices with the mushrooms. And it was good. I preferred the taste of Joey. It was richer. Mudwater was a little thin, but it also physically helped me, right? So at this point, I am no longer drinking coffee in the morning. I drank coffee religiously every morning with my golden milk in it for years. So now I'm still doing the golden milk, but I am not doing coffee, right? Unless it's part of the ingredients in my adaptogen blend. Um, so those are the four that I've tried so far, and I'm about to try another one called Atlas. And after that, I'm going to try Rasa. I'm a fan. I like them. I don't seem to need coffee in the morning, which, if you had told me that in an earlier decade, I would have laughed at you and said, no way. I was definitely a coffee drinker. I will still drink coffee as a treat. I will also drink it sometimes in the afternoon if I hit that afternoon wall, because that is when my biorhythms go, oh, time for a nap. So it's either nap, coffee. I think I'll choose coffee today. Um, Coffee's still good. I don't bash coffee at all. Coffee is something that really helps people. My son, who is a 15-year-old, drinks coffee in the morning while I drink my adaptogen blend because he's neurospicy, right? He needs that stimulant that caffeine provides to help him focus on his school. I still get coffee, and sometimes I'll drink it in the afternoon, or I'll be out and about and get a coffee. Um, but yeah, I like the coffee substitutes, and I like the direction and trend that means we're going in, right? People are looking for holistic alternatives to help them with their situations. But I will tell you, as a holistic practitioner, um, there is no magic bullet. And if you find yourself chronically fatigued, stressed out, anxious, no amount of coffee substitute is going to help you. You need to get to the root cause of that, and that means lifestyle changes. It may mean a sleep hygiene routine. It may mean removing yourself from a stressful situation that is causing you cortisol spikes all the time. I have personally had to do that. It is easier said than done, but honestly, it is worth it. Um, you know, Looking at root causes, and if you're not sure what your root cause may be, because it may be an underlying condition, right? Autoimmune dysfunction causes all of these things too. Um, but if you're unsure, talk to a practitioner, talk to a holistic practitioner who can help you get to the root cause of your problems and make some recommendations for you, because I want you to be happy and healthy. Bye. Welcome to the Ask the Herbalist intermission. It's our intention that we answer 2 questions per episode, with this intermission in the middle letting you know about our sponsor, Haven Herbs. Haven Herbs is a small batch herbal apothecary that is high quality, family owned, and has over 100 products in body care, remedies, and tonics that have all been requested by our customers. If you search our catalog and don't find exactly what you're looking for, please send us an email, because again, all of our products have their origin by customer request. We also have a dedication to education, hence this podcast, but also we teach free classes for cancer support community. We have a blog full of tips and education and a YouTube channel. And we have online classes available for purchase on the website as well. If you have questions for this podcast, there's a couple ways to do it. You can email me, Lily, Lily, at havenherbs.com, or you can visit our subreddit, which is called Ask the Herbalist. Ask the Herbalist questions on our subreddit will be answered on Reddit, but also may make their way to the podcast. You can listen to this podcast anywhere you happen to stream your podcasts on YouTube, and they are archived on my Substack, which I will link to in the description. Now, back to our programming. So my second question comes from an in-person question I got from a community member. I was out there teaching a library class fully masked, and it is 2025, and I am still masking indoors in public. And I know that the vast majority of people are not. And I was asked in a very respectful way, although I have been asked in disrespectful ways or just commented about in disrespectful ways. Why am I still masking? Isn't the pandemic over? And I want to say, no, no, it's not. Um, there's been a lot of marketing on the part of the government and businesses for people to get back to work and to get back to spending and live their life as normal and spend money on concerts and movies and all the things. But no, the pandemic is not over. We are still having people die. We are still having a ton of spread. And what's worse is now we're not just dealing with one virus, SARS-CoV-2, we're also seeing upticks in other viruses, airborne and not airborne. So we're seeing RSV, we're seeing influenza A and B, we're seeing avian flu. We're also seeing all kinds of other things that we thought we had kicked, right? Like measles, making a resurgence. And there's a number of reasons for this, but I want to get first to the airborne illnesses that we're all seeming to come down with, right? It's so funny the disconnect that people have. They want the pandemic to be over so badly that they're not looking at the data that's right in front of them and personally affecting them and drawing the same conclusions I am. So I just want to connect the dots for people who have, bought the marketing from the CDC and other places because it's not helpful. Um, the CDC, when they started, were giving out public health information. But it very quickly changed when it was going to go on for a while to, shorten the time that you get to stay away from work, to going back to work even if you're still contagious, right? The masking mandates disappeared when it became inconvenient for businesses to people see the mask and they remember, oh yeah, I should probably not be in this building with all of these strangers who I don't know what their safety protocols are. We saw a very quick redirect nationwide and also internationally to some extent, moving away from public health concerns and moving toward economic concerns. And they even discussed that a little bit in the media about how it was affecting the economy and that was just not acceptable, blah, blah, blah. But frankly, some billionaires' bottom line is less important to me than public health and staying disease free. Now, I want to tell you that there are some very common sense things. Once you know how viruses work, there are some very common sense things you can do to protect yourself. And I have several friends who have horrible impacts of long COVID, um, heart attacks, seizures, paralysis. Like, I'm not kidding. And the problem, of course, with long COVID is that you can get it years after your infection, even if your infection was just like a cold. It doesn't matter that the infection is mild. What matters is the virus is present in your body. And so, people think, oh, it was just a little cold. I'm fine. That isn't necessarily true. I'm not trying to scare you. I need to let you know the reality of the situation. I feel obligated as someone who cares about the well-being and health of everyone. I feel obligated to say these things. So I wanted to go over some very basic information that you probably already know, but I feel like people need some reminders. Number one, you want to look at what the levels are in your area, right? The levels of infection that are happening. And unfortunately, the government is no longer protecting us, right? The CDC isn't releasing that data anymore. They're not collecting that data anymore, knowing full well that we still have a pandemic going on. It's unconscionable, frankly, but that is where we are at. The first thing to know is to know what you're dealing with in your community. Okay. So let me show you. This is a website that you can go to at any point, enter your zip code or your town, and find out what the levels are for 11 infectious diseases that are spreading around the world. It is a nonprofit organization. The EN at the end is for English. You can do it in multiple languages. Um, but when I entered my zip code, I found out that the viral shed in our wastewater for RSV, for influenza A and B, for avian flu, and for COVID were high, high. Um, you know, it's really important for us to have an idea of this invisible threat that's around us. I think that part of human nature is that if we can't see it, we don't always believe it. And so germ theory took a while to be understood and accepted by most people, but viruses and bacteria are there. Not all of them are helpful to us, and some of them are downright harmful. So this nonprofit organization is one that will help you figure out how high your risk is right now. And please use it frequently. And if you can, give them a donation. They are doing all of this on a nonprofit's budget. They probably are not receiving federal funding at this point because nobody seems to be. And so what they're doing is incredibly valuable. So first I wanted to share that with you. It is so important to know what kind of risk we're dealing with. And then I wanted to go over how to prevent and how to avoid long-term illness with COVID and any of these other viruses that seem to be getting more and more virulent. So the next thing that I wanted to show you was this. So how do you prevent an airborne illness, right? Um, Number one, you need to put distance between your airways and the airways of others. This is what we call during the pandemic social distancing. 6 feet apart is a minimum, right? So crowded indoor areas where you're all breathing the same air, recycled air, is not safe. I know that people are weary. I'm weary, right? I wish I had the life that I had pre-pandemic, where I could go out and I could travel, fly on airplanes, go to theaters, like just so many things, right? But it is not safe, and you should know what your risk is instead of just sticking your head in the sand. So, social distancing is important, which means restaurants, movies, crowded concerts. These are things that need to be avoided. And I hate it. I really do. But it is the number one way um, to avoid airborne illness. The number two way is by putting a barrier between your airways and air that's been used by others, which we know as masking. I know everybody's tired of masking. I get it. Um, I'm tired of masking. And I invested in a long-term masking solution because I knew this wasn't going to go away very easily after I saw the government slip on its responses to this healthcare crisis. So number one, not all masks are equal. Cloth masks, no. Surgical masks, no. Now, I know that surgeons use these to prevent germ spread when they've got an open cavity in front of them, but they use surgical masks in conjunction with several other layers. Surgical masks by themselves are barely a barrier, they gap often. Yeah. So, what you need is a snug fitting N95 or P100. Um, I actually invested in a mask that has its frame that I can wash. It's plastic and silicone, so the silicone creates a nice seal around my nose and mouth. And I change the filters, and the filters are the equivalent of an N95, and they either last, depending on the type of filter you get, either 20 hours or 40 hours. Now, I will tell you, those disposable N95s are great, and I was using them before I invested in this mask. But they only last for 5 hours in a mostly maskless environment. If you were the only one masking in your area, everybody else is just breathing willy-nilly, 5 hours is how long that mask will last. They are not for a whole work shift. And nothing is 100% effective, but they get 95% of what is coming your way. A mask, a high quality mask, an airtight mask, and a mask that's at least an N95. These are the two main ways to prevent airborne illness. Now, I'm going to tell you, vaccination is important. I am not anti-vaccine. I am not anti-science. But it does not prevent you getting sick. Vaccination is there to prevent you from dying or getting an extreme version of the illness. If you get your COVID vaccine, and I encourage you to do so, along with all your other vaccines, I want to tell you that it does not replace the social distancing and masking. They are two very different tools in your toolkit, right? One is a hammer and one is a wrench, right? You don't use a wrench as a hammer. It's very ineffectual. A vaccination is there to help your immune system fight it if you do get it, right? It's to prevent really intense infections and help you live, right? So please do not think I'm vaccinated, therefore I do not need to mask. That is not how it works. Number two is taking some antivirals after a potential exposure. I when I am in an indoor environment, even when I am masked, again, nothing is fail safe. My mask is an N95. I take antivirals after I come home. I take herbal antivirals, but I take antivirals just as a preventative measure. And I will tell you that I'm one of the few people that I know personally that has never had COVID. And I masked 24/7 and took antivirals while I shared a room with two people with COVID. Um, there was a time when we were staying with friends while we were looking for a place to live and buy a house, and everyone in that house had COVID. Our friend brought it home from work and then passed it to my partner then and my son, and we all shared a room. It is important to be diligent because, as I say, I know people, and you probably know people that are suffering long-term organ dysfunction and failure, heart attacks, seizures, and neurological disorders, and brain fog because of having COVID. So I really care about you. I know that what I'm saying is unpopular, but I do want you to know that science is your friend. And there are lots of attacks right now on science because it is supposed to be, when it is done correctly, without bias, right? It's just telling you what they know to be true and can be replicated over and over again. Germ theory is real. COVID is real, and it is still highly prevalent in our communities. So are other viral infections, and I want you to be safe and healthy and happy. So that is my little lecture on airborne illness. I really hope that you are safe and happy and healthy in your community, and that you can help others to be safe, happy, and healthy in your community. Take care, and I will see you for the next episode of Ask the Herbalist. All right, we've come to the end of the podcast, and of course now we need the necessary disclaimers. If you get 10 herbalists in a room, you're going to get 10 different opinions on something. We are a cantankerous lot, so your mileage may vary. The opinions that are expressed here on the podcast are the opinions of the herbalists appearing, including your host, Lily Cunning, and our sponsor, Haven Herbs. Also, some necessary legalese. Lily and Haven and anyone else appearing on this podcast are not your licensed medical provider and therefore can't legally offer advice or products to diagnose, treat, or cure any illness. The content on the podcast is not intended to substitute for advice given by a physician, a pharmacist, or any other licensed healthcare professional. You shouldn't use this information as self-diagnosis or treating a health problem or disease. Information and statements on the podcast regarding dietary supplements have not been evaluated by Health Canada nor the FDA of the United States and are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease or health condition. And of course, see a practitioner of your choosing if your condition persists or worsens. Got it? Great.